Let's move on and talk about something. So it was at the strike of midnight Pacific time, Sean.
Do we even have time to go into this before?
We'll start it. We'll start it,
Okay.
and then maybe you can even move the interview off, or depending on the time, we'll just
Okay.
cut the interview for this week because this is a
Oh,
big
no,
story.
no. I got to run these. I got them backed up at this point.
All right. Well, you can pick your spot. It was the strike of midnight Pacific time, which is notable, and we're going to talk about that too. When Mr. Dave Meltzer did an audio cast, he's in Japan for Wrestle Kingdom, but he did an audio cast to publicly kind of confirm the launch of All Elite Wrestling. Most of what was said we already kind of knew based on trademarks that were filed, based on, Cody Rhodes being at the Jaguars game. But now everything has kind of come out officially, and Cody Rhodes has posted a lot of stuff, and the Young Bucks have posted a lot of stuff. So AEW is official. They're going to do an all-in-two show called Double or Nothing. They're working on a TV spot. I'm going to turn the floor to you, Sean, because you've been covering it extensively and you know all the details. Tell me what you know so far.
So I can't reveal the couple of people that I've talked to about this situation. You know, Jimmy, because I keep you abreast of the situation. But this is something that we talked about, I think, back in October, shortly after SE Scoops had kind of reported it. And a person extremely close to the situation said, that story has some elements of truth, but it's so far off. Like, that's not exactly what's going on. There wasn't that much new information released this week that we couldn't pick up from the trademark filings and assume. But as I told this person, my job isn't to assume. My job is to ask questions and find out what we can.
This is the great dynamic between you and I, because I can assume all I want.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a wrestling journalist, and we're going to talk later on about a topic where there's speculation about a certain somebody and whether they're on a payroll or not. And I know that you as a journalist don't really want to speculate. I'm going to speculate because I can do that.
You can do that.
So that's going to make that will make this fun, Sean.
I'm pretty sure they don't like me already for whatever reason, but hey.
Okay.
But this person, and I think I sent you this conversation back in October when they said, these guys just finished doing All In. Why would they work with Jericho and JR? And I said, well, with all due respect, I didn't expect the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins to buy the NWA. I didn't expect Jazz to be like a headlining name on a pay-per-view.
And for Corgan, for that matter, for Corgan to try to buy Impact when they were bleeding money.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in pro wrestling. A lot of things that happen, yeah. I don't expect.
Yeah.
So my job's not to assume. My job is to ask the questions. And they came back and they said there is a story to the JR Jericho stuff, or that story, but the JR Jericho stuff is so far away. And they asked me, well, what would you do if you were them? And I was like, how is one to know without all the variables? A TV deal, a talent roster. What'd you get from merchandise? What'd you get from the gate? What was the cut they gave ROH? What was the sponsorship money? What is it? Well, now we know what it is. It's Tony Khan, one of the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars, investing, I've heard a rumored number of $100 million thrown around, into All Elite Wrestling, which we know right now Cody, Young Bucks, Brandy Rhodes, Hangman Page are involved in.
Scorpio Sky's got to be, right?
Scorpio Sky, Kazarian, and Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
And those are three real good names to have there as well. So that's quite a top-heavy roster for All Elite Wrestling right out of the gate. We've seen Chris Jericho hanging out with Tony Khan. He's not made it a secret. Jim Ross, I would not be surprised if he's teasing involvement, but he's also scoffed at it.
So long as they use him right, because he showed with New Japan that he's not. I don't know if you want him to be your play-by-play face, but he's got name recognition if they use him right.
I agree completely.
I'd put him in a Mean Gene role, to be quite frank.
So there are reports that there are multiple TV deals on the table. I spoke with people at WGN in, I think, September, who said that they were very impressed with how things went down, and they had been in and out of the wrestling business. They thought they were sold a bill of goods with WWE Superstars several years ago. They're back into the wrestling business with Ring Warriors, so that's a good sign. Also, I think, as I mentioned in an article, we would be remiss to not include TNT in those discussions because they have brought One Championship MMA onto their network, so they have to be in the conversation now. There are, we don't know what the TV deal is going to be. We know Double or Nothing is happening. That's a smart idea. Don't know when. We also hear that they want involvement with New Japan. But what does that mean for New Japan and Ring of Honor? And if you're New Japan, do you look at things and you go, All Elite Wrestling has a way more top-heavy roster. If you want 3 or 4 people from America and you have access to them, I think you'd want Cody, the Young Bucks, and Hangman Page more than you'd want Dalton Castle, the Briscoes, and Jay Lethal.
Yeah.
All due respect.
Oh, yeah. And they have the history already.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, I think.
So there's just so many moving parts here.
Yeah.
And then you have the NWA working with Ring of Honor. You have MLW. All their wrestlers are getting signed to deals now, but a lot of them are on different shows. Everybody is on everybody else's shows at this point. And All In was almost a celebration of that. Mm-hmm. What is it going to be now? Will it be just that talent? Who's going to jump? Who's going to move? There's an overwhelming sense of optimism within the pro wrestling industry from a talent perspective for this move that I have not seen since I've covered pro wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's one of the favorite Sean Ross Sapp sayings is there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to unpack here. There's a few things I want to tackle. So first and foremost, I saw a few posts on social media about, oh, this is bad for wrestling. This is bad for wrestling. This is not bad for wrestling. This is good for wrestling. Because there are going to be more contracts available for talent now than there's been since WCW folded some 17 years ago. And so, I mean, you already saw, with all due respect to PCO and with all due respect to Brody King, are they getting Ring of Honor contracts? If not for the fact that the Bucks and Cody and Heyman Page left Ring of Honor, zero chance those guys would be offered contracts. So there's going to be a lot more guaranteed money offered to guys because of AEW. And so it's a very good thing. Now, I want to say a few things. I've been asked by a few people about, what do you think in terms of their future? Like, are they going to succeed? I don't think this is something that you can look at within the first 3 or 6 months. I think you got to give it 12 to 16 months, because by the sounds of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like All In 2 is going to be another one-off on pay-per-view, and they're working on a TV deal which probably wouldn't start until the fall if they get it. Which means that they'll work on an All In 2. They'll probably do All In 2 in the summer or something, or maybe late spring. Then they'll focus on using that to get the TV deal started in the fall. So you got to give it, from the time that the weekly show starts, you got to give it at least 12 months, because in the start they're going to have the XFL effect, meaning they're going to have the curiosity factor, and the eyeballs are going to be there. After a year, are they going to maintain those eyeballs? That's the question. And sorry, let me just finish. When you see guys like Cody and the Bucks getting EVP positions, executive vice president positions, I look at that, and I look at it from the side of the owner, and I look at it from the side of the talent. From the talent, of course they're going to take that, because why wouldn't you? Now you presumably are making a full-time salary, and they're probably making a full-time salary starting now, even though they're not going to be doing anything in terms of a product for a few months. So of course you're going to take it. You get to be on the ground floor of a startup, and you get to be an executive level position. You're going to take that. What the owner, because Tony Khan's president, right, Sean?
Yes.
This thing. So, and he's not a wrestling guy. So what he has to be smart about is, do not let this be a situation we've seen before where an active talent is given stroke, and they use that stroke to keep themselves in a prominent position. We've seen it with Triple H, we've seen it with Kevin Nash, we've seen it with Hulk Hogan, we've seen it with a whole bunch of guys in the past. They got to be careful that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks don't essentially turn their weekly show into being the elite, where they put themselves over every week and they use all this sarcasm and tongue-in-cheek humor that kind of puts themselves over at everybody else's expense. That will not succeed. And so they got to watch that doesn't happen. My gut tells me that the Young Bucks are going to be smart enough and not do that.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're still taking active talent and you're giving them a political position in the company. So they got to be very smart that doesn't happen.
Cody Rhodes had the benefit of growing up with a booker as a father, for better or for worse.
Who was also guilty of the same thing.
Yes, but
right?
I think he's learned from some of the same mistakes as well. Also, they built their platform on building other stars. I mean, they built Hangman Page, and they featured so many people. They really helped Scorpio Sky get over with this national audience, to the point where at All In, people said his catchphrase, "This is the worst town I've ever been in," along with him. I mean, that's not something that would have happened before being the elite. Other aspects to look at. People are going to say, there are always those people, and you've seen them, Jimmy, oh, WWE doesn't care. They don't care. Yes. I don't know. I mean.
Oh, they do.
They have been built on caring.
Oh,
Vince
yeah.
McMahon, since the 80s, always cares about at least who's number 2.
Especially with that kind of funding.
Yes.
They absolutely care.
And now you also have Ring of Honor with Sinclair Broadcast Group, that they got a lot of money too. They
and they don't want to be number 3 in this scenario, right?
Yes, they outbid WWE and All Elite for Bandito, who was a 23-year-old Mexican star who headlined All In. I mean, that is a great get for Ring of Honor. I
bet you they overpaid for him too.
They probably did, and they probably knew that they had to.
Yep.
And I think some of the people they brought in with Haskins, Brody King, PCO, those are good additions. I don't know if it fills that void.
Right.
There's nobody that I look at in Ring of Honor and say that's the next guy, that's the next big name.
They got to build.
Maybe,
what do they call that group? Villain Enterprises or something?
Yeah, Villain Enterprises.
So they're hoping that's going to be the next big heel group, but yeah.
You have Jeff Cobb, that's nice, but New Japan's going to play a big role in this. If All Elite wants to work with New Japan, and New Japan says, we'd rather work with Ring of Honor, that's it. In all this, New Japan is the prettiest girl at the prom. Everybody wants to work with New Japan.
Right.
From Impact Wrestling trying to pitch it months ago and getting rejected, that's a whole other aspect. It was matter-of-factly stated by Dave Meltzer last week, Impact tried to sell to All Elite, but that wasn't.
Was that a typo? Like, did he mean to say WWE?
So that's what Jeremy Lambert, our news guy, wrote. He's like, is this a typo? Because, it was a secret. And I know that Impact met with WWE about some talks like that.
And they utilized their footage on the network.
Yes. And another indication of how WWE only cares about who's number 2 or has funding, because as soon as Impact wasn't there, they got that footage on the network.
Right.
But where it wouldn't have been caught dead there 10 years ago. That I look at Impact and I think, man, they've got probably 15 to 20 pieces on that roster that would be very valuable to an All Elite Wrestling, but you don't want to become an Impact rehash.
No, absolutely not. You're right. Yeah. And if you look at WWE, because they've been signing so many guys as it is, they don't have room for all these guys. Like, what are you going to do with all these guys? Are you going to sign them to let them sit at home earning a paycheck? You know what I mean? They don't have room for them all. Like, what are they going to do? Obviously, they want to try to cut the legs out from under these other promotions and grab guys before they can sign them. But that means if they do that, they inevitably have to let somebody else go, right?
Yes.
And are you telling me that, I'm just pulling a random name like a Zack Ryder or Mojo Rawley, are you telling me that those guys wouldn't find work somewhere else? They absolutely would.
Especially today, because you got MLW running around out there too.
Right.
You got NWA trying to establish a presence. You have Ring of Honor wanting to keep their cupboard stocked.
Right.
New Japan, like I said, New Japan doesn't have to worry that much, although I've heard that Okada does not like the new management.
Yeah, I remember this. I heard that too, yeah.
You want to talk about a knife in the heart? If New Japan somehow lost Okada, I think that would be brutal to them. I'm not going to say crippling or anything, because you never know.
But does he want to work in the U.S. full-time? I don't know.
I have no idea what Okada wants. I'm not going to pretend that I have any in with him. I don't know what the guy wants.
Yeah.
But
let me ask you this question. So next Tuesday, January 8th, it just so happens that WWE is doing SmackDown Live in Jacksonville, Florida. And so wouldn't you know that next Tuesday, January 8th, AEW is going to do a rally for Double or Nothing, All In 2, in Jacksonville, Florida. Do you think they're going to play the raid gimmick and show up at the WWF building, WWE building? No,
I think they're going to try to appear as if they're an even plane type of thing.
Yeah,
they want to bill themselves as the Nitro. I mean, my God, they've even registered Tuesday Night Dynamite, which that's a whole other aspect. There's going to be a huge gap Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on cable and wrestling.
Oh, I think that's their full plan.
Yeah,
they know WWE's moving, and they know that come October, there's a shot that some wrestling fans are going to be late to the party and moving to Friday, and they're fully hoping to take some of those fans. There's no question about it. That's
and they probably should. But, yeah, I think they're just going to do it. What I've learned, because immediately when stuff like that happens, you know what I do? I look up flights. I look up, like, how to get there, what it'll be. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, flights are cheap, but it would still be cheaper for us to hire a freelancer to cover that. I have learned that Jacksonville is, in fact, not rich in wrestling journalism. Although I have talked to a couple people, and as things look, when I get the press information, we likely will have somebody there covering that for us, which will be nice. But
just find somebody in a nearby town and then just give them a per diem for gas or something.
That's what I'm doing. Or somebody who said that they were going to be there anyway, whose work I really like. But they got that. Also, BJ Whitmer, who just had a departure from Ring of Honor. He had his hands in so many aspects of that company.
And he's already publicly come out about it as well.
He's looking like he's going to be there. Also,